Good morning and welcome to SimWorld. Today it is Monday, September 29th. I am joined by Rico on a Monday morning. Good morning, Rico. How are you?
Oh man, I'm good. Thanks for having me, Marsh. I appreciate you having me on.
So we had a pretty active day. So we're gonna in multiple sports. So we've got, of course, today is the opening day of SimWorld U with the SimWorld TV Invitational Classic Tournament or whatever the long name is. But we had football and a little bit of SWBA news over the weekend. So that's what we're going to talk. We're going to start with football, and we're going to close it out with the long-awaited signing in the Bay Area. But there was, I thought the 4 p.m. matchups, 4 Eastern matchups, were the most entertaining of the Sunday slate. Now, that means it's not to discredit, our 1 o'clock window. The Eagles Bucks game turned out to be good. The Chargers get upset by the Giants on the road. The Lions continue to blow out everybody that they seemingly can, but it was a 4 o'clock window, so that's where we're going to start. And I actually want to start with the Chiefs and the Ravens. That was the big quasi primetime matchup. Two 1-2 teams that both needed to desperately figure out a win. And it's a really bad day from Lamar Jackson, who leaves early with a hamstring injury, doesn't play the fourth quarter. And a very dominant day from the Kansas City Chiefs, who have now won 2 in a row and now are essentially 2 games back of first place in the division with the Chargers loss. Your takeaways from, I guess, is the sky falling in Baltimore? Is Kansas City back? What's your take here?
I'm a little concerned with Baltimore, especially with what has been going on with Derrick Henry. I mean, it just really wasn't a great day for him. He's been struggling with the fumbles and things like that. And then now with Lamar Jackson, you can only speculate because when you're talking about hamstrings and stuff like that, I can tell you just dealing with it as a runner, it's something that people think that, okay, you just take, a week off or whatnot. Hamstrings can be very tricky. It can be something that actually, if you don't take enough time off, it can turn to something much worse. And so hopefully he's able to get back because that is really what, he uses to go along with his great arm is his legs. And so, I think that maybe the sky is more so falling here with the Ravens. They've also had some defensive players that were out as well. I think it was Patrick Queen went out to the game earlier on too as well. So, this team, a lot of expectations, and then you have the injuries that are mounting up, which that's pretty normal across the National Football League. But I think that this is more about the Ravens than it is about the Chiefs. And the Chiefs really, I think that they're going to be in a good position as they continue to get more reinforcements back. I think that that's really the biggest takeaway that I take from the Chiefs.
Yeah, well, the biggest reinforcement coming back was Xavier Worthy, who looked fantastic. 8 targets, 5 receptions, 83 yards. He had 2 carries for 38 yards, including a long 35er. Doesn't find pay dirt, but you can see the difference that Xavier Worthy, a legitimate, well, I guess legitimate for the Chiefs, but a reliable number one option is, and how that opens up the floor. You're not asking Hollywood Brown. You're not asking Juju Smith-Schuster to be the number one guy. You're not asking Tyquan Thornton, who had kind of moonlighted as that over the last couple of games. I'm not surprised that the Chiefs are now at 2-2. This is what we expected the Chiefs to be. They are a very good football team. By the way, they have the largest point differential of anybody in their division at plus 21. Anybody that wanted to bury this team with 2 games under their belts, losses to the Chargers and to the God, who did they lose in week 2? I can't remember. But the fact that they were Philadelphia, this was kind of where the schedule was going to rebound for them. And now they've got, they needed to get these 2 wins because their next 2 games appear to be pretty tough ones. You've got a Monday night showdown in Jacksonville, and then you've got a home matchup on I believe Sunday night against Detroit. So huge matchups. The Chiefs could not afford to be sitting at 1-3 going into these next 2 games, and they're not going to be. And so for me, I'm with you that the concern level. I was talking to Cece on Friday about my concern level right now being the Ravens entering Sunday. Rico was a 1. That has certainly jumped up. I would say the concern level right now is a 5, especially because you mentioned the hamstring. If Lamar Jackson can't go, my assumption is they just didn't play him in the fourth quarter because this thing was done. If Lamar Jackson can't go, this team really starts to have a challenging stretch ahead. Houston, the Rams, the Bears, and Miami before they go to Minnesota and Cleveland. I think that Rams game is the challenging one, but I'm not totally sky is falling in Baltimore. I'm nervous, but I'm not sky is falling because the schedule is nice looking ahead. But gosh, their defense can't stop anybody.
It can't stop. I mean, it can't stop a nosebleed at this point in time. And so, look, with the defense, I think that you mentioned, the game that you're worried about the most, but you got to give like the Texans and the Bears some credit here because they're actually, I know the record's not there, but man, they're actually a tough football team. Well, both of those teams are. And so I think that they are going to challenge the Ravens out there. And just going back to Lamar Jackson and just piggybacking a little bit off of the injury, what makes Baltimore so special is their ability to run the football. And Lamar Jackson, along with Derrick Henry, like they make that thing work. And so it's like you take one piece of that dynamic running back, or not running back, but your running game, and that's going to hurt you there. And so I just think that for them, they're going to have to figure it out because, offensively, I don't know if they have anybody at the backup position that can really just kind of run the show like Lamar Jackson. And just defensively, again, if you continue to get banged up like that, it's just not a good situation, especially after what happened to them against the Lions. I mean, the Lions were pretty much able to walk the ball up and down the field. So
Yeah.
not only do I think the injuries could be a concern for the defense, but maybe confidence might be slipping a little bit here for the Ravens as well.
Yeah, I mean, you have to imagine it is 41 points in the loss to Buffalo, a game that they should have wrapped up and won. 17 to Cleveland, who Cleveland's defense looks great. I mean, I thought they had a really nice Sunday. They just could not get scores in their matchup. So Cleveland, you give up 17 to, but that's just maybe as atrocious as an offense as there exists in the league, and they ended up getting run out of the gates there in the second half, and particularly the fourth quarter. And then you're looking at 38 last week to Detroit, and then 37 to Kansas City. You can't stop anything. And so while I remain cautiously, hopeful, because it's certainly not optimistic, that the Ravens can still manage back in the division, because you look ahead of them, the Steelers aren't a good football team. Like, they labored through and had to hold off the Vikings. The Bengals, who we get on Monday night, not a good football team without their quarterback for at least 3 months. And then they're sitting there at 1-3. Like, the division is gettable because the division isn't good, but their defense is so bad that it's really tough to project this team and say we think they can win a lot of football games between now and the end of the season, and then into the postseason if they manage to catch up there. But that's going to be tough because, as anybody that's listening to the show knows, we talk mathematics, we talk what is the chances here with based off the standings, and just looking at the postseason at 1-3, you're staring up at 1-2 Denver, which we'll figure out there. They play, like we said, on Monday night. New England's 2-2. Kansas City's 2-2. The Jaguars are 3-1 ahead of you. The Colts are 3-1 ahead of you. It is a pathway. There's a lot of good teams that you have to jump. Let's talk those Jaguars, who are going to get now a Chiefs matchup on Monday Night Football, where Jacksonville is rolling in at 3-1. Their defense had 4 takeaways on the road in San Francisco. Great first half offensively. They kind of sputtered in the second, but they get the win. They move to 3-1 and give the 49ers their first loss of the season. Any thoughts on the Jags? Are the Jags legitimate this season? I mean, we're wearing the sweatshirt today because we're feeling good about Duval today. What's your take? Jacksonville in what's a very interesting AFC South.
Yeah, I think that the player that really should be spotlighted the most, at least for me, has been Travis Etienne Jr. I think that he's been terrific for this team, and I think a lot of people wrote him off, especially when they
Yep.
got Brayshawn Tootin, I believe, out of Virginia Tech. I think he was the fastest player at the combine as far as the running backs are concerned, and so a lot of people thought that he was going to come in and just really kind of take over. And so I think that he's been extra motivated, and you just know just what he can do out of the backfield. Not only as a runner, but he's terrific as a pass catcher as well. And so I think that, him, and then you look at just the fact that Trevor Lawrence has done well as far as cutting down his interceptions and just really playing some good football that way because the arm talent's there. You know that he has, just the QB IQ, if that's a such thing. But, he knows how to see the field and understands where to get it to you. It's just a matter of could he cut down the turnovers and could this team start to play complementary football? And that's exactly what you're seeing. And so, That's kind of my biggest takeaway so far with the Jags is just that they're playing a lot more tougher than I think a lot of people thought that they would. I like the fact that they've revamped the running game because I thought that that was something that they needed to do. And then against the 49ers today, I like the fact that they got Brian Thomas Jr. going somewhat today. So the 5 receptions, 49 yards. And so I know a lot of people may look at it and go, well, he didn't get 100. He didn't get 70. He didn't get 80. It's a rhythm game. I think anything in life is a rhythm. And so if you can get guys on a rhythm, you can kind of build off of that. And so, look, I like this Jags team moving forward. They look good against a 49ers team that's played pretty gritty over the couple weeks that I've saw them play.
Yeah, this was nearly the second game that Jacksonville played better than the opponent and then nearly gave it away in the fourth quarter. The difference was that against Cincinnati, their one loss, their defense could not get stops at the end. And this is a defense now that has 3 straight games with 3+ turnovers. One of those, of course, was that Bengals game, but they didn't get that final drive. The difference was when the Niners had the ball that last time, it was Eric Armstead getting pressure up the middle, forcing a fumble, and this defense, particularly Devin Lloyd, who was fantastic in this game. 2 interceptions, was constantly in the face of Brock Purdy. But to your point about ETN, this running game has been completely, reinvigorated, rejuvenated, because they are running roughshod whenever they want to. I mean, Tootin just had 4 carries, but he still drums up nearly more than 3 yards, about 4 yards per pop on that one. That's fantastic. ETN going for 124. Like every single time they're giving it to these guys, just about they're getting 3, 4, 5 yards a pop. And when you can control the football game the way Jacksonville has, that's what makes this team so talented. But what I think has changed because, first half they were great. 17 points, probably could have walked out of there with 21, but they don't get the touchdown there when they get into the red zone at the end of the first half. This defense looks very similar to that peak Jaguars defense that made its way to the AFC Championship game. I'm not saying the Jags are making the AFC Championship game, but they're forcing turnovers. And that's something that they could not do a year ago because their secondary was not talented. When their secondary was leaving guys wide open, that wasn't giving enough time for your pass rushers to get into the paint or into the backcourt, we're talking thinking basketball, backfield, and making impacts. That's happening now. That is happening. Josh Hines-Allen is getting back there. Trayvon Walker's had a good season. Eric Armstead's had a good couple games. When you have a good secondary in the back end, which they overhauled this summer, you can get pressure because guys aren't open within the first 2 steps of a route.
And also, too, I think you got to give them credit because they're winning in the trenches. I think we talk about points and we talk about all this great stuff and the highlights and ESPN and, all this stuff. But the bottom line in the National Football League is you need to dominate up front. And that's exactly what they're doing offensively. They're moving people out of the way. And they're saying, look, we're going this way. You're not going to stop us. And they're making, the sticks come back to them. And I'm talking about the first down markers. It's easy to get there. And so you're just continuing to keep your offense on the field. You're grinding other defenses down. And then I just love the fact that they're getting the pressure, even if they're not getting the sacks. And I see that, with Brock Purdy, he only had 1 sack today, but you talked about it with the pressure. The pressure can be just as good as a sack, and, the back end, you love that. You absolutely love that because now it's like he has to get rid of it. The clock is sped up in his head, and it's like, look, I'm either going to take the sack, they're going to flip the field, or I got to put the football in the harm's way. And so that's exactly what the Jags have been doing. And so you got to give them a ton of credit. And once again, with Trevor Lawrence, I've been very impressed with the way that he's managing games. I think that just really seriously, you look back where he struggled, some of these throws, you're like, where are you going with that? And so I think he's kind of got away from those moments. He looks a lot more comfortable, I think, in this offense this year.
Let's go to the fact that they are now tied atop the division, and that is because the Indianapolis Colts lose to the Rams 27-20 in Los Angeles, so they fall to 3-1. So Indy and Jacksonville now tied at 3-1 apiece. I will say this. So, again, if you listen to me on SimWorld today, you know I'm a big Rams supporter. I'm not a fan, but I just like what they do. Love their quarterback who threw for 375 and was dominant. Love their running back in Kyren Williams. Love that they've got 3, really at times 4 options out of the backfield depending on what they're doing with Kyren Williams. With Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams are kind of their top 2 guys there. So I guess not really quite 3, but this is a football team that's really good. And the fact that the Colts were able to sit in the fourth quarter with a chance to win this, and I said this last Monday, the Colts were 3-0. Their wins had come against teams that had a combined one win, and that one win was amongst those three teams when the Broncos beat the Titans. I wanted to say let's see what happens when they start to play somebody. Rico, I came away from that game impressed with the Colts. This is a legitimate team. Not that they give a crap if I think they are or not, but this is a Colts team that showed a massive legitimacy against a really, really good opponent in a road game that's actually starting to feel like road games in Los Angeles.
Yeah, and starting with the Colts, and I'll say this, as a person that, just does content around the Commanders here and just really understanding the NFC East, I've watched a lot of Daniel Jones' games when he was with the Giants and things like that. And so he's definitely looking like a quarterback that I think the Giants wanted when they drafted him. And so, for whatever reason, this happens for players. They get into new situations and things like that, and they just, have a coming to whatever moment. And so I will give Daniel Jones a ton of credit. And I think really, I'm not trying to place blame on him or anything like that. This is probably the one game that he struggled in today with the 2 INTs and then getting sacked twice today as well. But still, I just love across the board what I'm seeing from the Colts because they're getting Jonathan Taylor involved, and I thought that is always going to be like a huge recipe for success for the Colts that they needed to start there. And then I like the fact that they've been getting Michael Pittman Jr. going, and so I know today it was a little bit of a stretch for him today. I think he's had a first couple weeks have been good. And I like the fact that they are bringing Tyler Warren in. And so Tyler Warren, he's a tight end that everybody talked about. We were wondering, okay, would he be able to catch on early? Daniel Jones loves him. They're finding ways to get him open. And so this offense, it's scoring points and things like that. And you got to give the Rams a ton of credit because, to your credit, Matthew Stafford, I think a lot of people count him out every year. He's older and, oh my God, he can't train right now because his back hurts or his toe hurts. I'm just making up stuff now. But still, Matthew Stafford is a guy that he's a gamer. Okay, I mean, I think that's just the thing that we need to accept with that. He's a gamer, and you always have to love Sean McVay and how he just writes things up offensively. I think he's one of the better offensive minds in the National Football League. And you talked about it, with all the things that they can hurt you with as far as just at the receiving core. One of the guys that I think still is just he's trying to find his way is Tyler Higbee. I think that once Tyler Higbee gets going as a tight end, he's been a guy that's been solid for this team as well. And so, ton of credit for the Colts. And then like with the Rams, they should have won that game against the Eagles. And so I don't want to take you too far back in time, but they really had that game wrapped up with the Eagles. They really let them get the momentum back. And so, personally, I think that the Rams shouldn't have got beat last week. And, they're showing that they're a gutsy team.
So the Colts, and if you're the Colts, the one thing that I would say is you walk out of this game saying we probably should have won if Adonai Mitchell doesn't stick the ball out and fumble it out the back end zone. And so,
yeah,
the fact that you were able to play that competitively, I mean, there pretty much every football game in the SWFL is going to be competitive, right? It's just how it typically goes. They all seem to come down to the final 5 minutes one way or another, unless it's the Lions. The Lions just blow everybody out, which is, impressive in its own right. But the Colts, you have to feel good. I've said a lot about the Rams and the fact that I do believe in them as an NFC contender. I think they're the best team in the NFC West. I don't know what their odds are to win the division right now, but I think that Vegas probably is in agreement on that. But this is, to me, I think this was a statement game for the Colts. They played again, maybe I'm the only one that was waiting for them to beat somebody. But the fact that you played this team that's really good, who, to your point, should have beat the Eagles, who probably should be coming into this game at 3-0, and they fold late, and they have the blocked kick that really knocks and ends up being the reason they lose. But the Colts, that's a legitimate win, and Daniel Jones is finally being put in positions to succeed. He's been throwing the ball really great. The system is much better for him than it ever was in Indianapolis, and he's got a running game that he certainly had with Saquon, but a much better offensive line. And I think that is often overlooked when we're dealing with is a quarterback, good or not, as is evident by everything going wrong in Las Vegas when you're looking at the running back, and Austin Gentry can't even get 2 yards of carry because the offensive line is so bad. Let's go to the SWB as we wrap up. Finally, the Golden State Warriors have made their first move of the offseason. It comes one day before training camp, and that is a 2-year deal. I think it's a team or player option on the second half, one of the two, for Al Horford. And the big one on this one, Rico, is this: the Warriors had long been dormant because they were trying to figure out what was going to happen with Kuminga. Jonathan Kuminga's deal. This to me signals the Warriors are done waiting around. They are ready to make a move, and this one, because it's a taxpayer mid-level exception, hard caps them. I think it's at the second apron. It limits what they can do. It officially limits what they can offer to Jonathan Kuminga. They had always been able to offer him more than that. Their preference had not been, but they cannot offer him anything that would take them into the second apron. I love this move from the Warriors. Look, I love it from like a strategic standpoint. You're essentially telling Jonathan Kuminga, here it is. This is, if you want to sign the qualifying offer, sign the qualifying offer. If you want to sign with us, sign with us. This is what we've got. But I think the challenge here, Rico, if we're talking basketball, is this is an old Warriors team, a very, very old Warriors team.
Yeah, and I think that they've pretty much put all their chips in with this group, right? And I think that really what they were trying to, one of their cards that they were trying to play is that, hey, we can get Jonathan Kuminga into a tradable contract, right? But Jonathan Kuminga is not budging. And I know that it's going to be risky business for him to go and really take a chance with the qualifying offer. But Marsh, I think that that's pretty much where we're leaning. I think he's going to go ahead and take the qualifying offer and really bet on himself. And that's going to be an interesting situation because you just wonder from team chemistry how that's going to be. The Golden State Warriors, they really don't have any kind of incentive to play him, right? Because essentially I think that that is saying that he's going to be out the door. And for those who don't understand restricted free agency in SWBA, he can veto trades. And so even if,
On the
they're like,
qualifying.
hey, we got a trade on the table, he can go, no, no, thank you. I'm good. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
like, this is a tough situation here. And so, going to your point with the team getting older, I do expect that they're going to make some damage because they have the best shooter, just really of all time. I'm just going to put it out there, period. And so it's just like you always are going to have a chance as long as they stay healthy. But, man, I just really worry about the fact that the youth on this team is gone. I don't know how they're going to revamp that. I just think that you're best served not giving away draft capital. I think that that would be a disaster here for Golden
Yeah.
State. So what is a pivot point, right? For like, what is in your what's in your cards for a pivot? Like, that's my whole thing. And I've always said this as a GM, if I'm sitting there, I'm in my office and I'm just racking my brain saying, what are we thinking forward wise? Like, how do we fix this? Because I just think that that's where we're at with Golden State.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they would be foolish to attach too many long-term picks for anybody that's not named Giannis Antetokounmpo. I mean, and I'm not saying that he's going to be available. They'd be foolish to do that. I will be honest, even as a Warriors fan, I do not know that the ceiling for this basketball team, if they make it to the Western Conference Finals, I think that's a win. If they make it out of the first round, I think that's positive. Like, I think that should be their expectation just based off experience alone. But you don't win championships with 34, 37-year-old Steph Curry's, 35-year-old Jimmy Butler's, 35-year-old Draymond Green's, 39-year-old Al Horford's. You just don't. You don't run around with the likes of Oklahoma City and Indiana a year ago with those types of guys. So I think that this is a team that's trying to position themselves. The move obviously was always to put Kuminga on a deal that was salary friendly. I just think that this has been a mismanagement by the Kuminga's camp. I think that this two-faced conversation and I understand nobody wants to be traded in the middle of a season. I get that. But the fact that they would walk around and say, well, if you don't give us this deal we want and we want a player option on the other end of it, we don't want to be traded. But we'll sign the qualifying offer so we can leave in a year. Like, you're literally they're giving you the pathway out of here that you so desperately want, and I don't know, and their reluctance to just kind of come to some agreement. I have always been on the side of players in contract negotiations. This is one where it's just read the market. I mean, heck, even his agent said, it's unfair. The Warriors are using the market against him. It's like, that's called the open free market system. I mean, I don't know what else you want what a team to do here. That just, to me, that's tone deaf statement to come out and say.
No, I mean, you're absolutely right. Look, heck, talking about the Chicago Bulls, I've talked about it the entire summer with what went on with Josh Giddey, right? And that restricted free agency. And then, just talking a little bit here and there about Kuminga because the noise about him to Chicago. And then, also, too, just talking about it from what happened with Cam Thomas, right? In that situation with Brooklyn. And so, it is unfortunate, with restricted free agency. I don't know if that is necessarily going to be the story for restricted free agency next year, especially with so
Yeah,
many teams that have a lot of
yeah. Once Cap
cap
comes
or
back.
whatever. Yeah, you know what I mean. So I mean, it's tough for Kaminga. It's tough for the Golden State Warriors, and I think just to your point, Marsh, I get what you're saying. Especially being a fan of the team, and it's just like for him, I think he's just to the point where it's like, what do I do if I'm not getting the minutes? It doesn't look like him and Steve Kerr are connecting. Again, I don't play for the Warriors, not in the front office stuff like that. I'm just looking from the outside, and it just doesn't. It doesn't seem like a great relationship there. And I think
Yeah.
that he's like, okay, look, if you wanted to trade me, does he really have the choice to say, hey, I want to go here, I want to go there? Or will Golden State just ship him anywhere? And I think that that's probably maybe a little bit of it too. I think it's the whole control aspect. And so I understand it from both sides. And I just think that I'm right there with you. I think that Golden State is going to be pretty good based off the fact that they have players that have just been there before, but they can only go so long and so much. And then like we haven't even talked about just like the roster itself and the construction. They still really haven't addressed the center position. Like I think that that is something
It's
that you wonder
horrifying.
about. They let Looney go. Like I don't necessarily like the fact that they let Kayvon Looney go. You still have a guy that's coming into his second year that's going to have to play a lot for you. So,
Yeah,
and Al
you're
Horford,
relying
do
on
you have to
Post
pace
and
him along?
Horford. Yeah,
Yeah, do you have to pace him along? Will he play major minutes? I'm not sure that he's going to be able to give you like prime years like the Celtics. That's my.
sure.
So what are you doing there?
We will certainly find out in about a month's time as training camp gets rolling in the SWBA. SimWorld U, though, starts later tonight. SimWorld TV Invitational Classic. We'll recap that on Tuesday morning. Rico, appreciate you jumping on here. We'll talk to everyone here on SimWorld TV, the only place you can see the game, be the game.